Alright, so we're back inside. We're going to wire up the connector now. This is the harness that will plug up to the one that we pulled out from behind the dash. And the non-bose harness that I pointed out. Not the jumper harness for the amp, the other one. And this is that model. This one has the little speaker box for the chimes, which plugs in right here. This is our radio wiring here. So I've got a wiring diagram for the harness, this one, and then I've got my one for the head unit. So make sure you check, because sometimes the colors can be off. Don't just match up the colors, make sure you're actually matching up the correct wires. So I'm going to solder and heat shrink all these together. I've also got steering wheel controls, and the steering wheel controls piggyback off of this pink phone mute wire. And so we'll need to tie into that. What I'll do is I'll snip this and we'll peel it back and we'll splice in the wire from here. I'll show y'all, and then we'll solder it up and heat shrink it. And that way we've got a good connection. This one, they actually have you go to their site and print out the vehicle specific ones, and they mention connect the pink wire of the ASWC1 to pin A1 of the vehicle. So pin A1 of the vehicle is actually this pink wire here, and so we're tying in to the harness instead of splicing into the wire that's on the Suburban itself. We'll tie into our harness here, so we're not cutting into any of the wiring on the Suburban. We're doing it all in this aftermarket harness. And that way, if I need to pull all this stuff out, we can unplug it here and pull everything out. They also recommend hooking the ground wire to an actual ground and not grounding it through the radio ground. So we'll actually find a ground, and I'm actually going to tie the, I'm not going to watch movies on this, but just to make it easy, I will tie this, the parking brake sensor into the same ground that I find for this thing. Now it also has the remote wire, so I'm going to connect looks like a ground, a positive. Let's see. We're going to have a switched. Here we go, Kenwood. Connect the black wire to the chassis ground. In the other instructions, they actually say don't tie into the radio wire, or they recommend not to do it. I think that was in this one, or right here. Somewhere in here it said so. So I'll find me a ground to tie that into. We've also got to tie into the switched power. So we'll come off of our harness here with switched power to the radio and to our steering wheel remote control. And for this one I got so we'll tie those in, and there's a lot of wires on here that don't get used. They've pretty much made one harness that fits, or one steering wheel control that fits a multitude of vehicles. And so you've got wires on here, and I think the way they're doing it is they just tie it into a different wire for a different vehicle. So we'll be using the pink wire So we'll use pink, red, and black. So we'll be using 3 wires out of this, and I'm gonna just I'll cut the stripped ends off the other wires and tape them up so that they won't touch anything, and we'll go from there. So let me get all these wired up. It's straightforward. Just, you know, match them up. Alright, a little bit of work later, and oh, I got a heat shrink right there. I'll do that. And see, here's the one that I spliced. I've got this power one where I did hook 2 up to. Got all the others hooked up, and then I've got some unused ones that I'll tape up, and some on the radio itself, and of course a bunch over here. I decided not to. This will get hooked up to the, is it the blue one, or the blue and white? I'll have to look at the diagram again, but let's see, no, it wasn't blue, it's where's the remote wire? Light blue with yellow stripe. Light blue, yellow stripe. Well, that's going to be irritating if this is an aftermarket harness. It's going to be irritating if the aftermarket harness doesn't have that wire in it. What I'll probably do, I'll have to find out where it's supposed to go, but it doesn't have it. When I got this radio, it did not have a harness with it. And the local stereo shop had one, and they were telling me how good of a harness it was, because they said most of them don't have the parking sensor, and this one is the, what was the purple one? I'll have to read it, because theirs does not have any of the special wires. It just has the most standard ones. So let me see what this purple, white is reverse. So let me look, see if I can find a picture of this harness and see. I've got 3, 4 pins that aren't being used here. I will not, my radio does not use this radio mute wire right here, this pink one. So I'll repurpose that one. I'll have to get it out of this harness, but out of this, get this connector out, and I'll reuse it for my remote wire. It's kind of irritating, but we'll make it work. So I found this picture online. If you look, so we've got steering wheel, remote, to me it looks like it's right next to the light green wire, which is for the parking brake. You can see we've got light green and then steering wheel remote. It looks like they're right next to it, and then we've got one of the speaker leads right there, and then a gap. It looks like probably 2 gaps, and then orange and yellow. If you look at our harness, we've got yellow, orange. We have this brown, which I'm not using. That's a mute wire in my harness, or my instructions say nothing about that wire, so that's an extra one in here. Then we have a blank. Then we have this pink wire, and then we have our parking brake, and then we have our speaker leads. So this pink wire looks to be the pink wire I was going to use looks to be where the remote wire is supposed to be. So I'll tie that in. I'm also going to not solder this one because it mentions on the programming, it says later Kenwoods, which I have a later Kenwood model, sometimes get recognized as JVC, and if they do, you temporarily, it comes with a resistor, you temporarily put this resistor in line with your, so you have the wire from your radio resistor, and then the wire from the module here. You put a resistor only for the programming portion, and then once it's programmed, you take the resistor back out. So I'm just going to tape this one up, and I may go back later after it's programmed and solder it, or I may not, just in case I have to reprogram it. I can easily put that resistor back in line. So, because you don't leave it in, you just put it in for programming. So let me get this wired up. I'm actually going to find another picture of the harness if I can, just to verify that this is in the right position to use it. And if I can, if I can't, I'll just go ahead and hook it up, because I'm fairly positive looking at that picture, but I'd like to just have a second picture just to double check. There's another picture. You can kind of see that see here. There it is right there, right next to that parking brake wire. So we should be good. Let me wire that up.